Welcome back to Propaganda by the Seed Shorts. Today I'll be telling you about everyday carry gardening tools and answering a question about seedling rootstock. But before we get into that, let's hear from our friends at the Channel Zero Podcast Network.
It's going down, and you're invited for what they selling. We ain't buying, there is no running, there is no hiding, there's only fighting or dying. It's going down, and you're invited for what they selling. We ain't buying, there is no running, there is no hiding, there's only fighting or dying.
It's Going Down is a digital community center from anarchist, anti-fascist, autonomous, anti-capitalist, and anti-colonial movements. Our mission is to provide an autonomous and resilient platform to publicize and promote revolutionary theory and action.
Go to itsgoingdown.org for daily updates. Check out our online store for ways to donate, and rate and follow us on iTunes if you like this podcast.
I've been meaning to record a podcast about my favorite tools for quite a while, not because they're anything special or unusual or, stuff you couldn't figure out on your own, but because I've been using them such a long time, and the particular tools that I use, I've grown to really appreciate that they've lasted, that they've continued to be useful after 20 plus years of use. And when I don't have access to my own personal tools that I use all the time, I really, really miss them. Like if I'm at someone's house, I'm like, oh yeah, I could help you plant that tree or whatever. And they have poor quality tools. It makes the job much harder. So I just want to encourage people to, if they can afford it, get nice quality stuff, and some pretty specific versions of common tools that I've found to be extremely helpful. So let's get right into it. My number one tool that I carry with me on my person, probably 10 months out of the year, is hand pruners. I prefer bypass style pruners. Personally, I use Felco number 2. And I think it's really important to have a holster for these, or else you're very likely to lose them because it's so easy to set down something small like that in the garden and it's just gone forever. Felco is a good brand. Some people say it's not the very best or it's not as good as it used to be, but it's the one that I use and I've found it to be great. I have 20 plus year old Felco pruners that I use every day. And they run about $75 with a holster. If you need something cheaper, Corona is a pretty cheap brand that's also decent quality. They have a bunch of different models. I would probably get the ones with replaceable blades if possible. There's also an A.M. Leonard that's basically a knockoff of the Felco, or it sure looks like it is, and those are about $50 with the holster. It's also important to have some way to sharpen your pruners. Felco makes a specific carbide-based sharpener that's pretty easy to use and works pretty well. You can also sharpen basically any pruners with a diamond hone, or if you want to disassemble them and do a really nice job, a piece of automotive sandpaper stuck to a tile is actually a very nice sharpening tool and very cost effective. The next tool that I want to talk about is a hori-hori, or Japanese soil knife. I like it better than a trowel, and I like that it also has a holster so I don't lose it constantly. It's great for digging up plants for transplant, cutting herbaceous plants into segments for propagation. Definitely great for planting out seedlings. It's got a million uses and pretty cheap. I tend to get ones that are like $10 to $15, and I've broken one in 20 years. You do have to be relatively careful with them because they're not super strong, and maybe the better quality ones that are more like 25, 35, $50, maybe those are better and you could like beat on them a little more. The number one thing you don't want to do with a hori hori is try and pry something out of the ground with it, because that's the most likely way to break it. But great tool and saves a lot of time if you're kind of working on many tasks in the garden, to have that on your belt so that when you need it, it's right there rather than having to like go somewhere else to get the proper tool. And the final tool I want to talk about for today is a all steel D-handle straight bottom spade. And there's a million different styles of shovel out there, and maybe this isn't the exact one for you, but I really, really like it. I've had one for probably 25 years now, and it looks like it's basically brand new. And the all steel handle lets you use it for stuff that you like probably shouldn't use a shovel for, like prying a giant rock out of the ground, or if you're transplanting something really big and heavy, like jamming your shovel under it and jumping on the end of it. This would just break most regular shovels, but these like good quality steel handle spades can just take a beating. Also, the actual shovel part of it is typically made of a much better quality steel than you see in most shovels. So you can actually grind an edge onto it, and they usually come with a factory ground edge on it, and it makes it cut through stuff better. So if you're digging through soil that has organic debris in it, or especially roots, it just digs so much better. And it's a fairly expensive thing as far as shovels go. I think I paid about $50. I looked online, and the shovel that I have was selling online for between $65 and $95. But if you're going to be doing a lot of work or a little bit of work every year for a long time, it definitely pays off, because I would have broken at least 10 shovels in the time that I have had this one $50 shovel. The one I really like is Wolverine brand. You can find a local retailer at wolverinehandtools.com. Because it's pretty heavy, if you can buy it locally, that's probably the cheapest option. But you can find them online too. A.M. Leonard also sells like a store brand version that's pretty similar. I don't know if the quality of the steel is quite as good, but if that ends up being your best option, I have used those shovels, and they're, roughly equivalent as far as I could tell.
Hi Aaron, this is Paul from Montreal, and I have a question about rootstock. So I've been collecting crabapple seeds and Bradford pear seeds from trees around my house. And I was planning on growing these out to use them as rootstock to graft cultivar apples and pears onto. So I'm just wondering if there's anything I need to think about in terms of using seedling rootstock, and specifically Bradford pear seedling and crabapple seedling, as opposed to using more traditional rootstock. So yeah, if you have any tips or information regarding that sort of thing, that would be much appreciated. Thanks a lot, and thanks for the awesome podcast.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for your question. The short answer is no. There's no reason you shouldn't use seedling rootstock for grafting pears and apples. One consideration you probably should make is that these will be standard size trees, and so just when you're selling them or planting them, just take that into consideration as far as, spacing and stuff like that. But for the vast majority of time that people have been grafting, they've basically been grafting to these kind of random seedling rootstocks. And it's only pretty recently that people have developed specific cultivars or specific seed propagated varieties to grow as rootstocks. So you should be all set with that. One other additional thing to consider with seedling rootstocks is if you get the seeds from fruit that is actually desirable, stuff you like eating, you could consider grafting fairly high on the rootstock and leaving a single branch of the rootstock growing so that it can grow out and show what the fruit characteristics are. And most of the time, it's not going to be anything super special, and you can just prune it off once it blooms and produces even a single fruit that you can taste. But it also gives you the opportunity to taste a brand new variety that no one's ever tasted before, and maybe it's something really awesome that you would want to propagate. So just if you happen to grow some out from varieties that you do like eating, that's something to consider. If you would like to have your question answered on this segment, please record it as a voice memo and email it to propagandabytheseed@riseup.net.